And welcome to a live special edition of the Carolina Weather Group, or as Jared Smith called it before the show, the Carolina Weather, what did you call it? Brady Bunch? We got 9 people here on the screen. And we are looking forward to taking lots of questions and comments and talking about what a busy week it has been here in the Carolinas. We are lining up for winter storm number 2. Of course, you will remember we started our week off with snow, freezing rain, sleet, ice across a lot of the Carolinas, and we are gearing up for another lick of winter storm on your screen right now. If you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook, we have winter storm watches up for Greensboro, Raleigh, Columbia, Myrtle Beach, Charleston, Wilmington, along the North Carolina coast. Interestingly enough, not quite in Charlotte. We'll talk about that coming up here in just a moment. So unlike last time where the western North Carolina mountains got a lot of snow, this time it really seems to be setting up more for central portions of North Carolina, or even that northeast quadrant. I'm gonna go right to it, guys. I'm gonna do the thing that probably the consultants tell you never to do. I'm gonna put the good thing really first. And let's look here at what the National Weather Service forecast, starting first with North Carolina, and then we'll get thoughts on this, showing in the next 72 hours. So culmination of whatever snow may or may not fall on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We'll talk about timing. Raleigh, 4 inches. Rocky Mount, 5 inches. Elizabeth City, 8 inches. Fayetteville, 3 inches. Rockingham, 2 inches. Charlotte, according to the National Weather Service, down to less than an inch. We'll talk about why that particular spot is so tricky. And here's what the National Weather Service in South Carolina is thinking, with about an inch across portions of the sandhills, maybe into Rock Hill, and then lesser amounts elsewhere. But of course, our big takeaway is going to be ice, which I am now realizing I may not have a graphic for ready and available. So we'll come back to that in just a second, because the ice threat is going to be one that is really, really pertinent for a lot of the region as well. So we'll get you that ice graphic in just a second. And of course, ask questions and comments as we continue tonight's broadcast. Joining us on our panel of experts tonight from WCNC in Charlotte, we have Brad Panovich, Chief Meteorologist, and meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees. Chief Meteorologist Jamie Arnold is on from WNBF in Myrtle Beach, where they could get some winter weather, or maybe a little bit further inland. We'll get his thoughts in a moment. And Tim Buckley, Chief Meteorologist at WFNY in Greensboro, is here. And on the Carolina Weather Group panel, Jared Smith, Charleston, Scotty Powell in Morganton, Frank Strait in Columbia, and Shay Gibson from Charleston. Also, guys, I want to say we have so many new people who have been checking out the Carolina Weather Group in the last few days. This is Wednesday night. This is what we kind of normally do on Wednesday night, is we bring people on and we interview and we talk and we have discussions, as opposed to these other nights where we've been in live storm coverage or we've been doing our Let's Talk kind of conversational series. Tonight, we wanted to up the ante by bringing all of these folks in. So let me start with Frank Strait, and then I'm going to go to some of our TV Mets, because Frank, I know right now in both North Carolina and South Carolina, we have states of emergency. And so talk to me a little bit, I guess, about your thoughts about what the threat is for South Carolina. I saw him down in that thumbnail, and I thought he's either staying really, really still or he's frozen. And I think he's frozen. So, Jamie, I'm going to punt that question over to you. South Carolina, even coastal, could get in on this time.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I've got freezing rain in the forecast here, all the way right down into Myrtle Beach, down into Charleston. We've all seen the trends today. You know, we kind of got up this morning and we were thinking this could be a pretty nasty ice storm. Not ready to totally pull back on that yet, but, freezing rain down here at the beach. And of course, it's a totally different ball game compared to you Western pros back there. You know, we've got like a tow truck and a, pickup truck with a guy and a shovel and some sand off the beach. And that's pretty much our road preps around here. So one thing that does have me concerned, even if we do cut way back on QPF is that, Friday night we could be 25, 26 degrees with some freezing drizzle and freezing rain. And that's getting into rare territory down here for any kind of ice threat. So even that could cause some big issues with all our bridges and, high bridges around here, and not a lot of road prep. So fingers crossed, hoping for sleet.
Sleet would be the better of the scenario, right? And that's the thing that we've been talking about. What feels like Groundhog's Day around here is, as impactful as snow can be, ice is worse. And here's a look at the National Weather Service take for South Carolina. Coating of ice, maybe flirting with Jared Smith in Charleston, as you mentioned, Jamie, along your section of the coast, further inland, and we'll show the North Carolina equivalent of this map too, right? Because once you start getting into that quarter inch of ice threat in, say, Florence or Dillon or Brad, I always say this one wrong, Chiraw? That was a swing and a miss, wasn't it?
Chiraw? Yes. I actually covered a hurricane down there. They weren't too happy for us outsiders to be down there.
Yeah, James, don't feel so bad. It's the difference between Beaufort and Beaufort, South Carolina.
Gosh.
Beaufort is North Carolina. Same spelling. Yep.
At least I don't say Cherryville. I say Cherville. Cherville. So let's pop up the North Carolina map. So folks who wanted to see what's happening, what we think is going to happen on that side, and we'll also show at least one or two of the model runs here in a moment too, because I know people want to see kind of the visual timing. But a third of an inch of ice in places like Elizabethtown, Jacksonville, New Bern. I mean, I think Jamie hit the nail on the head. These are not places that normally see winter weather, and we got a good reminder here in the last few days in the Charlotte area as a northern migrant to the south. Sitting in my corner going, "Why are schools closed?" If we're the experts to your west, Jamie, then I guess have concerns about what that infrastructure would be like elsewhere along the coast. We have Frank straight back. So Frank, while you were restoring your internet, we talked a little bit about what South Carolina could be in for, and I was teeing up with the fact that we do have a governor issued states of emergency in both North Carolina and South Carolina. So from where you sit in Columbia, Frank, what are your thoughts on what the next 72 hours could bring to South Carolina?
Well, that's the $64,000 question, is figuring that out. And that's kind of been my life the last few days, trying to figure it out as the models shift back and forth and try to get a handle on the complicated weather pattern that we're dealing with right now. As you mentioned, Governor McMaster has issued a state of emergency, which doesn't mean it is time to panic. It just means that certain state government agencies can do things that they wouldn't do otherwise, like the National Guard can step in to help out where it's necessary, that the state agencies can provide goods and services and establish emergency shelters and things like that. It's just a state of readiness, I think, as much as it is a state of emergency. But that being said, and actually what the weather impacts are going to be, as has been said already here, it looks as though ice is going to be the primary impact here in South Carolina. There is going to be a little bit of snow in parts of the upstate, maybe sneaking into the northern Midlands and parts of the PD2, especially later in the day tomorrow as that colder air that's pushing in gets deeper and potentially results in the entire atmosphere above your location becoming all below freezing or close to it, so that snowflakes don't melt on the way down in a warm layer, and instead they end up reaching the ground. But it doesn't look as though there's going to be a lot of snow. As you saw on the snow map earlier, it looks like that's going to peak at about an inch across the Catawba River area. By that I mean York, Chester, and Lancaster counties primarily. But farther south and east, the ice storm potential is the greatest concern. And as has been mentioned earlier as well, we're going to be hoping and praying for sleet in this area rather than a bunch of freezing rain, because that's what, of course, causes the buildup on trees and power lines and causes damage. So it looks as though the main area of concern for that is going to be close to I-95, where we'll see the longest period of freezing rain or accumulations or accretions rather of ice can reach a quarter inch or so. Once you get to that quarter inch mark is where you start to see more in the way of trees and power lines coming down and causing power outages. And the potential is also there for icy patches on the roads. I think the actual ground temperatures are going to be warm enough that the actual road surfaces themselves may not be all that bad, but you will have to be careful, especially in shady areas. But those elevated road surfaces, once temperatures fall below freezing, can get icy pretty quickly. And freezing rain is difficult to deal with for road crews. You put the brine down first, but freezing rain falls, washes it away. You put down rock salt, maybe that works a little bit better because it takes a while for that to dissolve, but it eventually gets washed away too. So the freezing rain is tough to deal with, and again, the ice accumulation on the trees and power lines, that becomes substantial. People's power starts going out. You start having things fall, limbs and branches can fall on people, bits of other debris. Maybe your storm gutters are a little weak and get brought down by ice accumulation. If you happen to be outside under them, you're in the wrong place at the wrong time and can get hurt that way. So these are a lot of different things that we're concerned about here for this storm coming up. And again, the worst of it looks to be the PD over toward the Midlands. We might see a couple of tenths of an inch of accumulation, or accretion rather, here in the Columbia area. Down toward the coast, the amount of accretion becomes less because we'll see less time with temperatures below freezing at the surface, and maybe the immediate coastal areas escape any significant icing entirely, except along the Grand Strand. But still, we are going to be concerned, even in the low country, for those inland areas, for some icy patches as temperatures fall below freezing during the day tomorrow, and stay below freezing tomorrow night before the rain tapers off.
Yeah, let me show at least one of the model runs here, and I'm sure everyone here will say the same thing that I'm about to say, which is that this is not a forecast. This is a one particular computer model possibility on what could happen. But I want to at least try to paint a picture on what Frank was describing, which is that a lot of us, as we go through Thursday, will have some encounter with liquid rain, maybe more snow, or in flurries in western North Carolina, your Boones and your Blowing Rock. But as this cold front comes through and introduces first rain, and then the cold air works back in behind it, that's when we could be experiencing some of that winter precipitation. But to Frank's point, it's hard to prime the roads with what you need to put down if the rain's going to come in first and potentially wash it away. But I will say, here in the Charlotte area, I did notice fresh salt brine on the roads this evening. I have a bunch of questions. I'm sure the panelists do as well. Brad, let me bring you into this conversation because I know you had a forecast out this morning, your first preliminary take on snowfall for the Charlotte area, and then the complexities of this storm, which involve a cold front and a coastal low, must have done something to make some adjustments by the time we went from the 10 a.m. video blog to the 5 p.m. news.
Yeah, I mean, just really after some of the morning ensembles came in and even the afternoon runs, it's a pretty clear trend that the drier air was shifting in and this was shifting east. But I'm kind of like in Jamie here. I'm glad that he said he wasn't bailing on the ice storm thing, because you see a lot of the comments, people saying, well, this model's shifting east or whatever. The thing you got to remember about this setup and why it's so complicated, it's a stalled Arctic front, and it hasn't stalled yet. And one of the things about forecasting stalled fronts, you guys know this, everything's a math equation. You can't forecast a movement of something if it's not moving. So you can't tell me how long it takes the train to get between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh if you don't have a forward motion. So if we don't know where and when the front stalls, it makes it really incredibly hard to forecast what's going to happen. Because let's say the next model run, that thing stalls 50 miles west. I mean, that throws a big monkey wrench in everything. And just being in the Carolinas long enough, these fronts that stall with Arctic air and overrunning, they always surprise you. They will end up catching you off guard. And I think that the cold air is what is probably my biggest concern, because unlike the last event where, it was we had the warm nose, we had a strong low that was tracking inland, we're going to have really cold Arctic high pressure to the north. I mean, there's a chance we won't get above 31 or 32. We probably won't break freezing on Friday. So whatever falls is going to be problematic. And then the fact that it's a weird event where normally north and west of 85, everyone's like happy, and south and east, they're mad. This is a time you want to be south and east. We could have more snow in Rockingham than we could in Boone. So it's just a really weird event. And then that transition area is over my biggest population density. So That's always makes for fun because, half the viewers are mad and half are really excited. But I do think, just looking at the overall trends, it doesn't look like a huge event. It's not Sunday's event for us. It's definitely a lighter event, but it's still problematic. I think the ice concerns in eastern North Carolina are valid because shallow Arctic air and that proximity of a low is a big problem.
What about for you, Tim Buckley in Greensboro? Should your viewers, Winston-Salem, High Point, Greensboro, and the Triad, expect more or less compared to what they saw earlier in the week?
Yeah, thanks guys for having me. I definitely think it's going to be less than what we had. We had some pretty hefty amounts earlier this week. We had a solid 3 to 4 inches of snow, and then we tapped that with about 2 inches of sleet, which shrunk it all down. It's still, ice rinks out here. It just doesn't even want to melt even in today's 50 degrees. So this doesn't have as much juice. There's not as much moisture to work with for our area. I'm sort of eyeing that front tomorrow afternoon. For us, we're pretty far north, we're pretty far west. That may end up being our main event with this system, the way it's trending. By Friday, that front is pretty far to the east. It is actually kind of far to the south. So that pushback of precip might not get this far west. So for me, I'm really watching that transition line between about 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. where we go from all rain and 40s to into the 20s pretty quickly. I'm expecting us to stay in the 20s here all day on Friday. So it's going to be very cold. Either you're going to have black ice concerns in the morning, or you get a quick little dusting coating to 1 inch of snow that'll freeze on the roads as well. So I think we'll have some sort of a problem to deal with. And we just kind of keep on emphasizing the word possible. This is a possibility. No one ever blinks an eye when you mention possible rain showers, but all of a sudden with snow, you have to know every detail, otherwise you're a fraud. So we are watching this very carefully, and we do know that there's a possibility of snow showers, number one, tomorrow night, after about 7 o'clock to about midnight or so. And then yet again on Friday afternoon, especially if you're east of Greensboro, a little closer to Raleigh, where it might be a little bit closer to that system, depending on how the models keep trending.
I'm going to come back to you in a minute, Tim, because I want to talk about, half jokingly, the difference between trying to communicate a forecast here and in our home state of New York, because I feel like the margins of error in New York are so much bigger. So we'll come back to that in a minute.
Because people are so nice there?
Well, no, but and I'm going to go to Brittany in just a moment to also talk about some ways to prepare yourself and your home. But I want to bring Jamie back in first, because Jamie, in this communication business, you're in a tricky spot because, yeah, it's a coastal low, but you've got ocean effects on your forecast, and then you've also got people as far inland watching you from Florence. How do you communicate that range of possibilities?
Not only that, but here in Myrtle Beach, we still have, not only for all the meteorologists down here, but all the viewers, we have the horrendous bust of 2018 that just looms over us, where it literally snowed everywhere along the coast, basically, except here in Horry County. And we're still honestly recovering from that. But yeah, it's like the other guys were saying, it's the possibilities. And I think Tim's, analogy to, it's not a big deal when you say a chance of showers and storms, but it is a big deal when you say a chance of freezing rain and sleet and snow. And obviously down here, the rarity of it puts in a whole nother element, because it just tends to elevate sort of the excitement of it, the urgency of it. So you're walking that fine line. And that's kind of the messaging going forward. And I know for me, and I try to do this with every big event we have here, is focus much more on impacts as opposed to trying to nail down, percentages and 1/4 of an inch and 1/10 of an inch here and there. Impacts are impacts. A 1/4 of an inch of ice, or a glaze of ice from freezing drizzle is still going to cause the same amount of problems on all our big bridges. So trying to sort of take that aspect, focus much more on that, on the potential impacts that we could see, and a little bit less on the specifics. And I'm almost a little bit relieved that we're not talking snow down here, because it even ups the game even more. So I think people will actually be a little bit relieved if they wake up Saturday morning and don't have trees down in their backyard, as opposed to waking up Saturday morning and not having 3 inches of snow in their backyard. So, you give and you take, and you try to just get the impacts across, and you got to, stay solid with that message.
I think that's what I was going to ask you as my follow-up was kind of about the mood, generalizing, of course, but I know like Scotty Powell in the foothills in North Carolina, Morganton, he wants snow. If it doesn't snow, he's disappointed. When you have
Dang
snow
right.
Yeah,
Jamie, when
same
you
down here. Enough of this ice junk. Bring me some snow.
You want the real stuff. Jamie, when you first mention the S word in a forecast, do people get excited or do they just want it to go someplace else?
It's literally, I think here it's a 50-50 split. Everybody who's moved here from Ohio and New York, obviously they hate it. They don't want it. They don't want anything to do it. All of us Carolina folks who have been born and raised here in this area, and especially here in Myrtle Beach specifically, they're rooting for it. I mean, we've got people rooting for freezing rain just for some sort of winter weather excitement to see. So yeah, and I think it's honestly a 50-50 split. It's give or take when it comes to winter weather.
Yeah, Jamie, I think we could agree with you in Charleston as well. It used to be somewhere up around 80-90%. Everybody would get super excited about it, but now we've had, Charleston's grown tenfold since then. And so now it's about 50%, I believe. I mean, people, I think maybe a little bit more than that get excited about it, but you do see a lot of people going, that's why I didn't move down here to see snow anymore. So, yeah.
I mean, you can't drive around here when it rains, much less when it snows. I mean, it's such an infrastructure issue just to start. But you do have your excitement with that. The excitement tends to start when the app 7 days out flashes the snowflake of doom, and then we all know that it's just going to be a long week.
Yeah. Well, that's step one. And then step two is when some model tracker on social media posts the 14 inches of snow along I-85.
Oh, yes. With all
the out of the Euro whatever model.
That never happens. Jared, let me ask you, because I know Danielle is asking about Charleston. Vera is asking about Charleston, and she's in Chesterfield County, and I pronounced the name of her town wrong. I'm sorry, even though she was hanging out with us on Sunday morning. I'm really, really, really sorry. Jared?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What is the situation there, Mr. We have a winter storm watch?
Yeah, we don't do that very often down here, but we do have a winter storm watch. And it depends on where you are. The closer to the water you are, probably the less likely that you're going to see a whole ton of ice. And again, the model runs have been interesting. I've noticed that the NAM 12 has been drying up on the 18Z run. So kind of keeping an eye on that. But we're going to have, it's going to get down below freezing. I suspect that, many places are going to see, a tenth of an inch of ice. Again, we were looking at the Weather Service prognostication earlier. And I think that seems reasonable. Could it be worse? It could be worse if it slows down a little bit. If the rainfall rate is slower, believe it kind of it's counterintuitive, but with freezing rain, if it's more of a drizzle or a light rain, you're going to be able to get a lot more buildup. So that's something that we're going to be watching very closely. As Brad said, with these stalling fronts, I mean, all bets are off with this stuff. And so that's certainly something that we're keeping an eye on. If you are in northern Berkeley, northern Dorchester, I would be getting ready for an ice storm, potentially up to a 1/4 inch of accumulation, especially around I-26 up where I-95 meets it and the Santee Cooper Lakes. I'd be getting ready for, potentially some power outages. I mean, I'd be getting ready for power outages regardless. Any ice, you can run into some problems. And heck, it's going to be cold. It's going to be pretty cold. We might even overload the grid. That happens down here sometimes. So, we've seen that with prolonged cold temperatures, and we're going to be 26 on Saturday morning. We're going to be 28 on Sunday morning. So this is going to be a prolonged cold too. This is not going to be the February 2014 ice storm. This is not going to be the January 2015 ice storm. This is not going to be those things, certainly, which we are thankful for. But still, any bit of ice causes problems with travel. And
are we not going to have snowflakes on the Folly Cam again? Because that's everyone's favorite when it snows.
Right. Yeah. As for the Folly Cam, I don't think that is not going to be snow. I mean, we'll check. I mean, I'm sure we could send a couple CFC Met majors with pizza again, like we did that time. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, if you're in it for snow, I'm sorry. No.
Yeah. No. I'm gonna put Tim Buckley on the spot because reminder, folks, he's in Greensboro. but he's going to step up to the plate for us and pinch hit Raleigh and eastern North Carolina, because that's where the bullseye of this snow is potentially going to be, Tim.
Well, it's potentially where it's going to be if there's going to be a storm. Yes, that's right. So we're watching for the Friday afternoon, Friday evening time frame over there. And this has trended quite a bit, right? So earlier today, Weather Service in Raleigh put out winter storm watches for a good chunk of central North Carolina, all the way from Greensboro, really their whole WFO basically, for pretty much like a widespread 2 to 5 inches. They have said in discussions and everything since then that that's going to kind of be adjusted pretty dramatically if the current trends hold, which right now, for anyone watching, what we're seeing is that precipitation may stay a little bit more confined toward the coast. From Raleigh more east is still more likely than Raleigh off to the west. So it's really an uncertain forecast right now. Hopeful to pick up a couple of inches in Raleigh. I think that is something you can hope for, but it's certainly not something you can take to the bank at this point. If you want to be sitting pretty, probably farther to the north and to the east toward like Elizabeth City, up closer to Norfolk, Virginia, those kind of areas potentially could see several inches of snowfall. But in general, the farther west you are, especially of I-95 or of US 1, your totals are going to be more uncertain and likely trending closer to little to none going into Friday.
I'm going to bring Brad back in here because I know he's got some winter forecasting rules, but a couple comments to lead into this. First, from Justin, that he loves Brad's updates on YouTube. Thanks for all those geeky science details you do. Want to get that plug in, of course. And then Andrew's comment. 2 days ago, I was hoping the models would trend southeast so Raleigh could get more snow instead of sleet. Now it looks like the complete opposite. Funny how the models change. Brad, what is so complicated about this storm that we're within 1 to 3 days and we're still having a hard time nailing this down?
I think it just has to do, initially, there was some guidance a couple days ago that we're trying to phase 2 short waves and we had a cutoff upper low. It's just a really complex setup. It's not a straightforward forecast. I think the one thing about winter weather that always makes it difficult in the Southeast is we just have more variables. It's like doing a word problem that has 1,000 different parts to it instead of just 2. It's a much more difficult forecast in that stance. And the other thing is, I think that the Arctic air is the one thing that I think makes this a little interesting to me. And Jared was right. These stalled fronts in Arctic air, they tend to kind of overproduce sometimes and kind of catch you off guard. I actually went back this evening, started looking at the winter storm database, trying to find a similar event. And when I was nosing through there, I found an event back the day after Christmas in 2004. And there was a swath of snow along I-95 in eastern North Carolina from 4 to 10 inches from south to north, and then a half an inch of ice to a quarter inch of ice just east of there. And it was a little bit of a surprise event, and it was day after Christmas, so people weren't paying attention as much. But I just think there's a track record of these stalled fronts being kind of difficult. And a lot of people want to latch on to one single model run. I'll tell you what, in situations like this, your ensembles are your friends. The ensembles don't fluctuate as much. I've been keeping a close eye on the ensembles for us. They didn't go from 0 to nothing to 10 inches. They kind of been right around that 1 to 2 inch range and then went down to 1 inch for this morning. So it's been coming back a little bit, but it's not quite as dramatic as the deterministic runs, which are kind of like windshield wipers. Sometimes they go back and forth. And the thing you have to be very careful of is the flip back the other way, because that's still a distinct possibility. Who knows what happens with the evening runs? So yeah, that's my boom and bust forecast for Charlotte. I kind of use a probabilistic approach there. I put 40% for our trace to 1, but it's really important. I have 0 on there. The 0 is 20% and the 1 to 2, 35. And my boom is 4 inches. And the reason that's 4 inches is my boom. And a lot of people say, can we get 6, 10 inches? Well, not with 4/10 or 5/10 of QPF. You're not getting that much snow. You only have so much moisture, right? Even if you use the 10 to 1 ratio, you're not getting 6 inches of snow out of 4/10 of an inch of liquid. It's just not going to happen. So that's kind of my rules that I kind of go with. And typically within the 1 to 3 day range, we would have a lot better information. But hey, we just don't in this case. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's why we want people to pay attention and stay up to date. Tim made a good point. If it was scattered showers and the chance of storms was increasing a couple days from now or decreasing, people would love it. But for whatever reason, winter weather, people want you to make a forecast 10 days ahead of time and never stray from it again.
Scotty, you're on mute. Could you try that again?
Yeah. Hey, Brittany.
Scotty
how are
Powell,
you?
everybody.
Hey, Scotty.
Do you miss Florida yet, where you didn't have to put up with this nonsense?
You know what? I actually feel like this past event was a really good learning, tool. First, I get to work under one of the best chiefs ever. Shout out, Brad. But just
Brad's
not
blushing
Brad,
right now.
but it's true. But I grew up in Atlanta. I know a lot of you guys who already know me know that. And then first job was in Myrtle Beach. Went back to Florida and then came here. So haven't had a lot of experience with winter weather forecasting, but I agree with Brad about the ensembles. I tried to actually, when we started getting the trends that we could have a storm, Brad was in Tahoe and I was filling in for him. So I definitely felt very nervous about kind of like making that early call. And I know that, of course, we wouldn't make a call, on Monday or Tuesday when the event's Sunday anyway. But I do think the ensembles were our friends. Like when the GFS had 20 inches basically over Charlotte and then the Euro had 1, like the ensembles always remained really consistent with that. So I think that was good. And I just like the, rules that we use kind of as a weather team, that Brad has kind of put in place to gradually kind of get a better idea, as we go on, and just being honest with the viewers about the uncertainty. Another thing that I think a lot of times working weekends is a little bit difficult, but also interesting sometimes is right now we're work from home, with COVID cases rising. And so I've been trying to kind of rack my brain and get a more unique approach, of like the impacts that our viewers could have. And like today, James, I know we talked about this. I did a story just on why is it so important that people clean off, the sleet, the ice, and the snow from their cars, before hitting the roads, because you hear so many stories about people getting in accidents, because snow, or big chunks of ice coming off of a tractor trailer and, breaking people's windshields. So kind of just trying to look at those more, significant, but also impacts that maybe people don't talk a lot about. Like though, AAA spokesperson I talked to was like, I don't think I've ever had an interview ask me about, snow on, your car, but it's important, especially with so many transplants, at least here in Charlotte. I can't speak for Greensboro, or Charleston or anything, but I just feel like there's so many transplants here in Charlotte, especially since, COVID began, that a lot of people are up north and they think we're crazy if we don't know how to drive. But then you might have someone like me, coming from Florida. And then, I mean, I've literally never driven with ice on the roads in my entire life, and I'm almost 30.
You're not missing anything.
It's not fun. It's not fun.
I need to know, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
people do too.
So about those impacts, so what would you suggest folks doing who are preparing for this winter weather event, either it be in the Charlotte area, Raleigh, or Myrtle Beach, or Greensboro? I mean, what are some of those key things that we need to know?
Well, if you're going to be inside, for any reason, I think that Brad mentioned this too, especially here in Charlotte, we're going to get some of the coldest air that we've seen of the season, so that's a big deal, I think, too. So, going up into winter, we were talking about, ways to prepare your home, just in case of a power outage, or just, ways to kind of keep the heat in, right? If you don't want your bill to go up crazily, when we're not going to get above 31 degrees on Friday. So just like the typical things that you kind of hear about, making sure weather stripping is good to go on your home. Typically, of course, apartments and condos kind of maintain their warmth a little bit more than houses. So, closing and opening the door as little as possible. Not rushing to the grocery store, but getting anything that you may need, for some reason, especially if you're closer to the East Coast and Myrtle Beach, somewhere that doesn't get a lot of ice and you guys end up getting ice, Jamie, like having a way to kind of make sure that you're staying in and preventing those impacts. I feel like here, especially with our ice that we got, the fact that it was MLK Day, maybe parents weren't happy about it, but I think it definitely helped kind of keep people off the roads a lot, but that just won't necessarily be the case this Friday. And I think too, coming in with that rain and those slick roads, especially Saturday morning, I think any place that gets rain will have that better chance of refreeze. So kind of any avoidance or any way that people can make sure that they're ready if they have to head out or prevent themselves from doing so. Still NFL weekend, so maybe stay inside and watch football. And
Watch some football. That's
avoid
right.
going out at all costs.
Find something good.
Work,
No, Brittany, that's a good point. It is weird that it's been 2 weekends in a row, and I do think from an impact standpoint, being on the weekend makes a big difference as far as travel, because If that Sunday event had happened in the middle of the week, it would have been a much bigger deal. And then this one happening kind of on a Friday night, Saturday morning might reduce the impacts overall.
Yeah, and one situation that if we do see that light snowfall on Friday during the commute hour, that could present issues all in itself with temperatures below freezing, a little bit of snow. We saw the winter jam of down in Birmingham and Atlanta. Tim, I think you may have even mentioned something on that on Twitter today about the timing of this. We could see even though it's a little bit of snow, we could see big impacts with that.
Well, there's just no room for error, right? Like if everyone's at school and everyone's at the office already and you have cold roadways, there's no room for error. So for example, Friday around my area in the Piedmont, I'm expecting it to be in the 20s all day long. The roads will have plenty of time to chill. It's been cold for at least a week around here. Anyone who's been around a little while, you might have seen that meme, right, with all the cars on the roadway, and one of them is on fire, and they usually Photoshop some sort of Marshmallow Man or Star Wars or something into it. That was from the 2014 big snowstorm, which came in with a quick inch or two right around the evening commute, and everybody got stuck on the roadways. So it doesn't take a lot of snow to create those big problems. It just takes a little bit. So our school system here, Guilford County, they actually already mentioned and decided with a winter storm watch in place, we're just going to have remote school on Friday. So today's Wednesday. They've already announced that for Friday. They also decided it for tomorrow because we still have ice on some of the country roads at the moment. So pretty good call in my opinion. I think if you want to err on the side of caution, keep the kids home. They can go to school on the computer. That's a nice thing we can do in 2022. And it might just avoid some of those problems. If you start seeing heavy snow around 3 p.m., that can be a recipe for problems.
Definitely. So, and Jamie, I want to bring it to you because my goodness, man, you guys are, we're not really used to a lot of winter weather here in the Carolinas, but you guys definitely are not used to it. So, what's the word for preparation for you all? I know you and Andrew's been really hitting those facts hard, trying to keep everyone in the Grand Strand ready for possibly icy Friday.
Yeah, I think basically what our message is going to be is get where you need to be by literally Friday morning. And just stay there is probably going to be your best bet, especially considering the freezing rain. It may trend a little bit more sleety, which would, as we were saying, would be good as far as power outages go. But sleet is like a glacier on the streets. It didn't go anywhere, especially when it gets packed down, as all of you Western Carolina folks know. So that's going to be kind of our messaging is, mid-morning through midday Friday, you're going to need to be where you need to be and probably just kind of hang out there. And like Tim, our schools here are already closed for Friday, which kind of blew my mind as the messages were coming in today. I was like, wow, they're really, going early on this, which, I think is fine. They're going virtual, but, so they're people take it seriously here, but, you also kind of have to nuance the messaging a little bit more for people who, aren't so familiar with, dealing with winter weather and dealing with the potential impact. So you're always, riding that fine line.
And I know you were halfway joking earlier when you said we only got a tow truck and something, but Myrtle Beach area, they don't have the snow plows and the sand and the salt and all that.
Yeah. And I'm honestly, I'm not joking. The 2014, we had the back-to-back winter storms here. In 2014, we had the sleet storm that was in January. And then 2 weeks later, we had the crippling, crazy ice storm with inch and a half of freezing rain just inland from here. And that first one that we had, I know we had sleet pack on the roads here, even in Myrtle Beach proper for about 4 days. And literally on day 3 and 4, there were city workers in pickup trucks going down to the beach, filling up the back of the trucks with sand and literally throwing sand out of the back on Highway 17 so people could at least get somewhere. So, hey, we do what we got to do around here.
I'm going to bring Charlotte back in here for a moment because we obviously have a bunch of questions about whether or not we're going to see snow in Charlotte. And I know that's the $1 million question, but without trying to second guess the National Weather Service, I did find it interesting. I sit in Matthews, North Carolina, which is a stone's throw from Union County. So in terms of impacts, I'm looking at these winter storm watches that are up going, okay, I don't have one here in Mecklenburg, but I'm so darn close to one. I might as well prepare because it doesn't hurt to be prepared. I don't want to put ourselves in the shoes of the National Weather Service or pretend like we're casting any doubt on them, but Brad, do you think we'll get an advisory? Do you think we'll get it on the watch? Do you think they're trying to keep it out of the metro for as long as they can?
I think there was a low probability even in those counties. So because you got to remember, it's kind of a bureaucratic. They're kind of in a catch-22. Like Union County, North Carolina, it's a pretty big county. If there's a warning criteria in the northeast corner, they can't just put a winter storm watch for the northeast corner. They got to put it for the whole dang county. And so that makes it difficult. And then that butts up against Charlotte. I really think overall in our area, it's probably borderline winter weather advisory. There's specific criteria for folks that don't know. For our area, it's about 3 inches of snow in 12 hours. And so that's some of those areas is borderline that would happen. It's more like in the 1 to 2 at the worst. So to me, it's a winter weather advisory. And it's also a certainty thing. They got to have a certain level of confidence to issue this. There's just lower confidence the further west you go. So you just wait to pull the trigger on, some of those type of setups. So I do agree, though. I think you focus on the impacts. A half an inch of snow at rush hour on Friday is not going to be great. Black ice on Friday morning is not going to be great. It almost doesn't matter the amounts. People love to see winter wonderlands, but it's really about the impacts on the roads. And I think at the end of this, it's going to be about slick commutes in the morning and the evening. And I've been pretty much telling everybody, I think during the daylight hours, it's probably going to be okay for the most part, but I wouldn't want to be around sunrise or sunset driving too many places on Friday, just because I think with the rain coming in tomorrow, we're going to have probably a little bit of a refreeze on Friday morning. And then whatever falls Friday, even if it's flurries, might cause some slick spots. But it's certainly not for the Western Carolinas, the storm we had on Sunday. That was an all-timer for some areas, and really the best storm we've had in about 3 years. And the amount of sleet we had in Charlotte was pretty prolific. And so I don't think we'll see anything remotely that impactful this go around. Just going to be a whole heck of a lot colder.
I don't know if we've talked about this too much, because I think we all kind of came in with the notion that amongst us tonight we're watching for this. So let me ask you, Brad, on this tweet you sent out earlier about the positioning of where the front stops and where the low. Could you explain this to our viewers again tonight? And let me couple on this question to it. When will we know where this front and low is going to set up?
So, I think all the meteorologists in this room know that, sometimes these things are a little more difficult, and sometimes it becomes a nowcasting type of situation. And you look at the short range guidance more often. So two concerns I have, even though all the guidance, the 18Z guidance was like trending east and drier. I look at what's happening right now to our west, and one thing that struck me is how much more precipitation there is with the front right now to the west of us than the guidance has. I don't know if you looked at the current radar. I mean, I'm looking at it right now, and there's a lot of moisture to the west, and there's like a 3-4 inch snowfall in northern Arkansas with the front, not even with the low that's going to form in Texas. So that always gives me pause. And then what if the front gets in here and doesn't make it to the coast? What if it stalls on I-95? Or what if it keeps going past the coast? I mean, until it stops, I have huge questions about where that's going to happen. And then this low pressure that develops down in Texas and kind of tracks along the front, that's the big, one of the things you look for is how amplified it is. How does it twist back to the northwest and bring moisture in? Is it a flatter wave or is it a more amplified wave? So those are really small, nuanced things, which may seem like a lot of weather geek talk. But in the grand scheme of things, a 30 or 50 mile shift in one of those could be the difference between a trace to like 3 or 4 inches of snow. So I think it's an important thing to watch. And I hate to say this, but it might be one of those things where we literally watch where the front is tomorrow. If it's slowing down or speeding up as it's moving through, that might give us pause for what's going to happen on Friday.
Brad, sorry about that. Roger heard you say the front could stall and we could get more freezing rain. He immediately started freaking out again. So.
No, I think he was barking at the cat.
No, it was he was like freezing rain again.
No. Well, Brad, we're better to do geeky weather talk than here,
Yeah.
hopefully. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's I love the fact that people get so excited for winter weather. I know some of us are transplants. I feel like I was telling the school talk I did today, and I was saying how I've lived in Charlotte longer than I did my hometown, so I feel like I'm more a local. But the thing that I love about this area, I grew up loving winter weather. My first passion for meteorology was a blizzard in the late '70s, early '80s when I was a little kid, and we had to dig out our front door to go outside. And I still love snow, but the thing that's crazy about this area is we get so little snow, but I've never lived anywhere where people go more crazy over it. I mean, I lived in Traverse City, Michigan. We averaged like 300 inches of snow per year, and they love snow, but they never freaked out about winter weather like they do here. So it's kind of a cool, but also sometimes nerve-wracking thing because people hang on every word. They want updates every hour. Which is cool, but it's also, it's a process. I think we've gotten so good at our jobs that people forget that we are talking about a storm 3 or 5 days out and we actually get snow, but it's not the exact amount. And they forget the fact that we actually got snow talking about it 3 or 5 days ahead of time, which is a pretty amazing fact. So we're so good now. We don't argue about the fact that we missed a whole storm. We argue about missing 1/10 of an inch of liquid equivalent for snow or sleet, which is probably a good testament to how good the forecasts are getting now that we don't miss a storm. We miss the small amounts in people's backyards.
What I'm going to do here in a moment is do one last question for everybody. Plug where your coverage is going to be. Scotty, I know you got something kind of hot off the press you wanted to jump in with here real fast.
Yeah, I just was reading some of the NWS weather chat stuff, and the Raleigh office mentioning with the latest guidance expects some big changes in the winter storm product. So Tim probably saw that as well. I see him with his with his little smirk on his face. So expect to see some changes possibly with the latest data, at least for the Raleigh area. That's what they're kind of hinting at. So,
all right. Well, I'm going to go back here to Tim in a second because Brad hit on something about it's not. Did we get the type wrong? Did we get the date wrong? But we got 1/10 of an inch wrong. And I mentioned earlier in the show, I grew up on Long Island, and Tim, you were upstate, if I remember correctly. And I feel my memory of growing up is trace to 3 inches, 3 to 6, 6 to 12, and 12 plus after that. What surprised me when I came south is the amount of pressure that gets put on meteorologists because snow accumulations are lower here, but also so rare. We get into this. Is it going to be 1 inch? Is it going to be 2 inch? Is it going to be 3 inch? Is that your experience? Do you ever just sit there sometimes and go, this margin of error is just ridiculous?
It is very difficult. Yes, of course. But, it's a frequency thing, right? So like Brad was saying, if you only see it, think about right now, if you have a 3-year-old, they didn't. Well, okay, great. So he or her first fun time in the snow was what, on Sunday? So yes. I think it all comes down to emotions. It took me a long time to figure that out. Because I grew up actually in just north of Syracuse, New York, in lake effect land. Tug Hill Plateau, which weather geeks will know about, is like 200 to 300 a year of snow, depending on which way the wind blows off the lake. So we got plenty of it. I kind of got sick of it, but it also got me fascinated with the weather and how amazing it was. But down here, it's so rare that I think it's really the emotional factor of, I want to make really fun memories with my kids in the snow. We bought this sled. We haven't used it yet. It was 2 years ago. So I understand that. I do not understand. I think sometimes people watch us like it's I don't want to say boxing match, but it's certainly some sort of a sporting event, right? Like which weather map is going to win? Like I see Brad says this. Well, okay. Well, BTV says that. Like, they really do. And they really want to hold us to that. And then they'll kind of like, poke and prod. Hey, you changed it. I say you shifted about this much. It's like 2 pixels north that you shifted the 1 inch line, and then you get poked about it. It's kind of funny, but it is a little exhausting as well, to be honest.
Well, where can they watch you for the next couple of days moving those pixels around, Tim?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we're going to be here the whole time. Channel 2 WFI in Greensboro. You can get us on our website, news2.com. We are on Roku. We're on Fire Stick. My bosses would love if I said that.
I'm happy you said that, and I'm not your boss. So good job.
Terrific. Well, you can find us there, and we'll be happy to give you some
Brittany,
coverage
Brad,
on
the bar is
Friday.
high when we come to you. But I'm going to go to Jamie. I'm going to go to Jamie next, and I'm going to have him plug where people can watch him. But I'm also going to couple it with this question. And I think we hit on it before. But when you're putting out snow maps, do you get more flack from people when it overperforms or underperforms? I'll let you answer that, and then tell people where they can find you.
I'll start with the snow maps. Definitely underperforms. They're, take everything that Tim just said and the emotions behind snow, magnify at times 1,000 here in the Grand Strand, where it's so incredibly rare. I think we have to go back to 2004, 10-ish maybe for our last good snow here at the beach, and that was good snow was 3 inches. So if I put an inch on a map or a coating to an inch, people expect it to happen and they want to see it. And if it's a coating and not an inch, they're going to let us know. And again, like I mentioned when this first started, we're still bruised and healing here from the 2018 debacle with the snowstorm that happened or didn't happen, at least here at the beach. As far as where you can keep up with us, WMBF News, WMBFnews.com. I know we're working with the managers and kind of getting a plan together to make sure we have basically everything covered all day Friday night, and expanding some of our coverage as we head into Saturday morning, potentially as well, depending on what happens Friday night into Saturday morning, and depending on what kind of impacts we have here. We're definitely going to be planning on pretty much round the clock stuff here. Even being down 2 meteorologists heading into this weekend, we're gonna pull through.
Yes, you and Andrew stay strong.
We're going to do it. We're going to hold each other up, and this could be my last storm. I don't know. I always figured it would be a hurricane that I would kill over here in this weather center. Maybe it'll be a quarter of an inch of sleet that does it.
Well, get some rest, drink some coffee, and we appreciate it, and your viewers appreciate it as well. Brad, where can your viewers find you on Roku Pop Quiz?
Yeah, get the WCNC app. I mean, it's great. I actually watch this on Fire TV. That's a great app too. If you're a streamer, it's a great place to get. But here's the other great thing: download our app, WCNC news app, which is great. I actually use it quite a bit to watch us when I'm away from the station because we stream all our newscasts there, and you can catch Brittany and I. Cause we'll be working a lot on Friday. I'm hoping not too much into Saturday. Saturday looks like it might be a little easier. But Friday will be a busy day, just kind of keeping an eye on this thing and the cold temperatures. I think the one thing I'll leave people with is really, don't downplay the cold temperatures. This is some of the coldest air we've seen of the season. And while we may not get a ton of snow, it's certainly nothing like last Sunday. I think that the cold air is going to be a shock. Remember, there's a lot of vulnerable communities out there who don't have a place to stay warm in or have issues warming their homes. So think about those people, and you can reach out to them and help them because it'll be a tough weekend with some really cold overnight lows and highs struggling to get out of the 30s many days.
Brittany, you have some other things you can plug and tell us how people can watch you this weekend?
Well, I think that you have to go to the WCNC Charlotte YouTube channel and subscribe, as well as the Weather IQ YouTube channel and subscribe. Scan
This
our
is like
QR
this is like a
code.
promotions drinking game. Okay, if we can say WCNC a few more times, the bosses will be really happy with us.
Exactly. And I do also stream us just like Brad does, but on my Roku. So that's always fun. I also have local cable, so I can watch it both ways. But yeah, so, I think Brad, hit the nail on the head. Won't be maybe quite as impactful for a few areas, but, the cold is nothing to not be, concerned. I think Brad was going up teens Sunday morning. We haven't seen that in well over a year in Charlotte. So
I might have to make snow. So I might,
which is the thing he does, for the record.
I haven't had a chance, and it's cold on the weekend, which is great. So my kids can enjoy it. So I might make snow.
Aren't you doing it next weekend, right?
Yeah, next weekend, actually. I should plug that. Thanks for reminding me. I'm actually going to be up at Blowing Rock for Winterfest.
Ooh.
So I'll be making snow on Friday night, Memorial Park in the evening, and Saturday morning. So that's a great event. Last year, COVID kind of killed it. So this year we're back up there, and I'm excited because looking at the long range, at least temperature wise, it looks like it'll be plenty cold enough for me to make snow because I've had years where I haven't been able to make snow up there in Blowing Rock because it's been too warm.
Here's a look at Blowing Rock tonight.
First of all, Brad's on Blowing Rock Friday. I will be working for him. So tune in WCNC.com.
It is a great event. If you've never been up there, it's really fun. They do the polar plunge over at Chitola there. which is a big event. And there's all kinds of food, and it's just really cool. It's kind of like our version in the North Carolina mountains of celebrating winter, because people do love winter, and they love it in the mountains because snow to them is white gold. It is great for the tourism industry to get snow in the mountains. And that is a big event. It brings a lot of people up there. So it's kind of fun. We get to celebrate winter. And the cool thing, it's right for the Winter Olympics too, which will be fun. We'll get to talk about getting ready for the Winter Olympics, which will be right here on WCNC coming up at the end of the month.
Okay.
How many more promos we have for
enough promotion
WCNC?
And we have the Super Bowl on in the weekend of the Olympics. So it's going to be a crazy 2 weeks here.
Oh, it is going to be a couple of weeks. Don't worry. Tim, Ginger here watches you on WFMY. So got a little love there for the Triad. And Sandy also talking to Jamie here about Myrtle Beach 2013, 2022, when it was last snowing there, I think. So Sandy had another good comment that I wanted to actually close out tonight's show with. And let me get this back up because I think it really drives the point home. Folks get so focused on the amounts of snow, the amounts of ice, the amount of whatever, when the hazards will still be there regardless. Anytime I did interviews, Sandy used to work at the Weather Service, I always stress, don't focus on the amounts, just prepare and know what to do in different situations. That's right, because whether it's a 1/10 of an inch of ice or 15/10 of an inch of ice, it's ice nonetheless, whether it's 1 inch of snow, 2 inches of snow, 3 inches of snow, so on and so forth. I will close by plugging the Carolina Weather Group. So many of you have found us just this week, and we welcome you with open arms. We do a show just like this every week, talking about weather, science, technology, and more from across the Carolinas. We will have live coverage when snowstorms or severe weather hit. You can find us on YouTube. Watch us any place that you can watch YouTube, including your smartphone or your smart TV. And I know a lot of you have been checking out our Carolina Weather Net, which is our streaming service that streams around the clock with live weather conditions, sky cams, and radars, and the best of our show alongside live coverage. And again, you can find that on the Carolina Weather Group YouTube. You may even be watching this replaying on the Carolina Weather Net. So hello to you. And then as we have been doing, we'll be along each night with what we're calling Let's Talk Carolina Weather, where we answer your questions and discuss the forecast. And I think everything here very soon, guys, is going to be more nowcasting. So if you haven't already at home, download the MPing app. It's not our app. We're not plugging our app. It's an app that allows all of these TV meteorologists you see on the screen, all of the forecasters at the National Weather Service, and us here at the Carolina Weather Group to know what type of precipitation you are seeing in your backyard. And this is the perfect week to check it out. MPING. It's free. And we want to know in the next couple of days whether you're seeing rain, sleet, snow, whatever it is, because weather observation stations are great, radars are great, but the best way to get weather observations is from you in your own backyard. So we hope you will download that and then be a part of our expanded nowcasting scenario. It's crowdsourcing the weather, I think, as we like to say. Special thanks to Jamie and Brittany and Brad and Tim. Be sure to check them out if you live in their areas. And the Carolina Weather Group panelists as well will be keeping an eye on the storm across our social media platforms with special updates, again, on YouTube. And I will also say, I swear this is the last plug, but if you check out the Carolina Weather Group, wherever you get audio podcasts, that is a place that we will be putting additional briefings from emergency officials. So last weekend, when the governors were holding news conferences, as Governor Cooper is expected to do tomorrow, in addition to carrying those online, we make a point of putting those out on our audio feed because we know in times where you might have limited access to power or limited access to the internet, just being able to stream a little bit of audio is so much easier than, say, streaming video. So that's why we will lean on that platform in times of need in order to get that information out. So special thanks to everyone again who joined us. I'm James Brierton in Charlotte. Don't panic. Be prepared. It's winter after all. We'll see you back here again next time for more from the Carolina Weather Group.